Hello, minions! Today I will be reacting to another SFM creepypasta, this time created by Surky, as you can obviously see by the title. It is called the Tulpa, and this is part one of hopefully a multi-part series on Surky's channel. This video was just released a day ago, I believe, so of course part two will not come out for some time, because there's a lot of work that goes into creating SFM content, as you guys know. But until then, feel free to enjoy my reaction to this one. And with that out of the way, I will not be haranguing you guys with my boring monologue any longer. Let's get into it. Okay, menacing music right from the get-go. Let's get some
Last
titles
year, I
on this.
spent 6 months participating in what I was told was a psychological experiment. I found an ad in my local paper looking for imaginative people looking to make good money. And since it was the only ad that week,
yeah, I would probably take that offer. I mean, I'm an imaginative person, and I like making money.
That I was remotely qualified for, I gave them a call and we arranged an interview.
Excellent.
They told me that all I would have to do is stay in a room alone with sensors attached to my head to read my brain activity, and while I was there, I would visualize a double of myself. They called it my Tulpa. It seemed easy enough.
What if you started visualizing something like a giant monster, or like a kaiju, or an ape, or some kind of other creature or entity? What would happen then? Would they just figure it out and kick you out of the experiment? Probably, right? Because the sensors would be able to see, relay your brain activity to them through some kind of, scientific process. I don't know. I'm just spitballing.
And I agreed to do it as soon as they told me how much I would be paid. And the next day, I began. They brought me to a simple room and gave me a bed.
Surky's animations are always so on point, man. They're so smooth. The sound effects are like on point. I mean, it's a treat watching these. He's such a great creator. So make sure to give him some love, guys, once you're done with this video.
Then attached sensors to my head and hooked them into a little black box on the table beside me. They talked me through the process of visualizing my double again and explained that if I got bored or restless, instead of moving around, I should visualize my double moving around or try to interact with him, and so on. The idea was to keep him with me the entire time I was in the room. I had trouble with it for the first few days. It was more controlled than any sort of daydreaming I'd done before. I'd imagine my double for a few minutes, then grow distracted. But by the fourth day, I could manage to keep him present for the entire 6 hours. They told me I was doing very well.
You're doing great,
The second week, they gave me a different room with wall-mounted speakers. They told me they wanted to see if I could still keep the Tulpa with me in spite of distracting stimuli.
I wonder if you guys could do this. I don't know if I could do this, really, like visualize a double of myself doing things, right? Like that would be, because you'd think that would be really easy, right? Because the person you're most physically familiar with is yourself. But I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of ways it could go haywire, but that's just my opinion.
The music was discordant, ugly, and unsettling, and it made the process a little more difficult. But I managed nonetheless. The next week, they played even more unsettling music, punctuated with shrieks, feedback loops, and what sounded like an old-school modem dialing up, and guttural voices speaking some foreign language. I just laughed it off. I was a pro by then. After about a month, I started to get bored. To liven things up, I started interacting with my doppelganger. We'd have conversations, or play rock, paper, scissors, or I'd imagine him juggling, or breakdancing, or whatever caught my fancy. I asked my researchers if my foolishness
that seems like it could go really wrong really quickly, but hey, I'm not one to judge.
This would adversely affect the study, but they encouraged me.
No,
so
keep
we
doing
played
it, man. This is awesome.
And communicated, and that was fun for a
basketball with your Tulpa.
And then it got a little strange. I was telling him about my first date one day, and he corrected me. I'd said my date was wearing a yellow top, and he told me it was a green one. I thought about it for a second.
How do you know that? How do you know that? How do you know that? Okay.
And realized he was right. It creeped me out, and after my shift that day, I talked to the researchers about it. You're using the thought form to access your subconscious, they explained.
Ah!
You knew on
I don't
some
like
level
that.
that you were wrong, and you subconsciously corrected yourself. What had been creepy was suddenly cool. I was talking to my subconscious. It took some practice, but I found that I could question my tulpa and access all sorts of memories. I could make it quote whole pages of books I'd read once, years before, or things I was taught and immediately forgot in high school. It was awesome.
This is the best way to memorize math homework, guys. Just get a Tulpa.
That was around the time I started calling up my double outside of the research center. Not often at first, but I was so used to imagining him by
Is
now
this a Fight Club situation or something like that?
that it almost seemed odd to not see him. So whenever I was bored, I'd visualize my double. Eventually, I started doing it almost
You
all the
look
time.
too old for college.
It was amusing
male
to take him
model
along
Gmod.
like an invisible friend. I imagined
that's
him
nice.
when I was hanging out with friends or visiting my mom. I even brought him along on a date once. I didn't
That's
need to
not a
speak
good
aloud to
idea.
him, so I was able to carry out conversations with him, and no one was the wiser.
What the fuck?
I know that sounds strange, but it was fun.
What are you doing in GM Big City, man?
Not
Get out of
only
GM
was
Big
he a
City.
walking repository of everything I knew and everything I had forgotten, but he also seemed more in touch with me than I did at times. He had an uncanny grasp of the minutiae of body language that I didn't even realize I was picking up on. For example, I thought the date I brought him along on was going badly, but he pointed out how she was laughing a little too hard at my jokes and leaning towards me as I spoke, and a bunch of other subtle clues I wasn't consciously picking up on. I listened, and let's
Perfect
just say that
wingman.
date went very well. By the time I'd been at the research center for
Yeah. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
4 months, he was with me constantly.
That's great.
The researchers approached me one day after my shift and asked me if I'd stopped visualizing him. I denied it, and they seemed pleased. I silently asked my double if he knew what prompted that, but he just shrugged it off. So did I.
Oh, no.
I withdrew a little from the world at that point. I was having trouble relating to people. It seemed to me that they were so confused and unsure of themselves, while I had a manifestation of myself to confer with. It made socializing awkward.
Everyone needs a
Nobody
Tulpa.
else seemed aware of the reasons behind their actions, why some things made them mad and others made them laugh. They didn't know what moved them, but I did, or at least I could ask myself and get an answer. A friend confronted me one evening. He pounded at the door until I answered it.
Open the door!
You haven't answered when I called you in fucking weeks, you dick! What's your fucking problem?
I was about to apologize to him, and probably would have offered to hit the bars with him that night. But my tulpa grew suddenly furious. Hit him, it said.
What? No, man, I mean, come on.
And before I knew what I was doing, I had.
What the
I
fuck?
heard his nose break.
Well, you didn't need to do that. What? Listen, I'm all for, like, violence and assaulting other people, but, like, only when it's, like, logical and it benefits you. That in no way benefits you. Your tulpa is, like, working against you now. I'm sorry. What the bloody hell, man?
He fell to the floor and came up swinging. We beat each other up and down my apartment.
That's a completely justified
I was
reaction.
more furious than I have ever been, and I was not merciful. I knocked him to the ground and gave him 2 savage kicks to the ribs.
Oh,
and that was when he fled, hunched over and sobbing.
What have I done? What have I done? I hurt him. Yes, you must use your hatred, your anger. Vest yourself in the dark side of the Force, and it will be everything you have imagined and more. Power beyond your wildest dreams. This is really cool. Oh, there's the Patreon supporters. I really like that. Compared to like other creepypasta stories where there's like some external threat and the protagonist is clearly scared. This is clearly like a more, sort of like a thriller, kind of losing my mind. Like, is this Tulpa a sentient being or my subconscious? Like, and of course, I'm leaning towards this being like a sentient being the scientists are creating as part of their like plans or whatever. So, yeah, this is really good. This was probably my favorite creepypasta so far, actually, because of how unique the premise and like how unique the characters and relationships and dynamics are. So make sure to give this a watch. Thank you guys so much for following my channel. Thank you all for supporting, subscribing, and liking my videos. More content is coming soon. The Horde Prime villain competency entry is also coming soon. I just have to make some finishing touches on that. So, sit tight and wait. And yeah, Darksiders, thank you so much for your continued patronage of my channel. Great things are coming this summer. I also have a video planned about discussing what I'm going to do for this summer and like what kind of content I will release and how I'll be expanding this channel in the near future. So stay on the lookout for that too. All right, guys, thank you all so much, and peace, Darksiders.